information, strategies, and resources to understand their baby's behavior and make informed decisions about feeding. Parents need support before their baby is born, at the hospital, after they bring the baby home, and in other situations. You can do a lot to help educate parents-to-be before their babies are born. This is a perfect time to talk to them about their expectations and to help them be realistic about what having an infant will be like. Information about infant crying and sleeping is also important at this time. The ideal time to educate parents about crying is either before the baby is born or very shortly after birth. This is because parents may think crying is always due to hunger and start to supplement unnecessarily very early. Share the following key messages about crying. Crying is an important way that babies communicate when they really need something. There are many reasons babies cry. Understanding and responding to cues will reduce crying. Use repetition to soothe when needed. Pregnant women are often eager to learn about their babies, so this is a good time to teach parents about how infants sleep. Parents will need this information very soon after birth, before their first appointment, which may be weeks after their babies are born. First-time moms may not find the sleep messages as immediately useful, so you may find that repeated messages are helpful. Share the following key messages about sleep. Babies have two types of sleep, light and deep, and babies need both to be healthy. Their sleep patterns change over time, and eventually they wake up less. Some parents may need to wait to put their newborns down until the babies stop dreaming, because babies in light sleep wake easily. Parents can encourage light sleep and dreaming by laying babies on their backs to sleep. Watch this video of the first part of a prenatal meeting with Mariana. Mariana has questions about newborn waking and crying.
Hi, Mariana. Hi, Rachel. This is my mama, Cecilia.
Nice to meet you.
I'm so glad that you're both here today. We're going to start with some paperwork and then have a little chat about how you're feeling and any concerns you might have. Does that sound okay? What questions do you have before we begin?
Well, I was wondering, is it going to be hard once the baby is born? Mama says I cried all the time when I was a baby.
That's right, you did. You cry, so I knew you were hungry and I feed you. Sometimes you fall asleep right after I feed you. And then I was so relieved. But I put you down in your crib and you just start crying again. I just couldn't figure it out. You already eaten. And I thought you were full. But I guess not, since you woke up to eat some more.
Oh my gosh. Is this going to happen to me with my baby too? Will she really wake up and cry all the time?
Watch the second part of the prenatal meeting, including Rachel's response to Mariana's question about waking and crying.
Well, it can seem overwhelming at first. Babies do wake up quite often, especially when they're very young. Their stomachs are very small, so they have to eat every few hours. How does it make you feel to know that there's a reason that babies wake up so often?
That helps some. I understand it a little better.
Newborns also sleep differently than adults. See, babies have two sleep states, light sleep and deep sleep. As adults, we fall asleep in deep sleep, so we're not as likely to wake up right after falling asleep. Newborns fall asleep in light sleep, though, so they're really easy to wake up. Cecilia, I bet that's why Mariana kept waking up when you would put her down after falling asleep. She was in light sleep, and so the change in position between being held to lying down was enough to wake her up.
Oh, I never knew that. Is there anything we can do to make it easier for Mariana?
The good news is that if you hold the baby for a little while before putting her down until she switches to deep sleep, she won't wake up and cry. I've heard from some moms that other family members can be a big help with that. When Mariana finishes feeding, if she can hand her to you, Cecilia, and you hold her for 20 minutes or so before putting her down, she should stay asleep better. How does that sound?
Oh, and I get to hold my sleepy grandchild. That is one of my favorite parts of having grandchildren.
Okay, I can deal with that. But you said babies wake up a lot. How much do they wake up? How long before my daughter will sleep through the night? A whole month?
That's a question that we get a lot from moms. Babies do wake up a lot initially. They will wake up about every 2 hours for the first few weeks, but it will get better with time. Unfortunately, it'll be a little bit longer than a month before she sleeps through the night. That usually doesn't happen until babies are about 6 months old. Today, if you'd like, we can talk a little bit more about what to expect with feeding baby and how that fits into our nighttime sleep. Would that be okay?
Yes, I'd like that.
Education before moms give birth is important for preparing them, but your support can continue at every stage of the process. When new moms are still at the hospital after giving birth, they need your support making informed decisions about feeding. This can be a time many moms lose confidence and reconsider their decision to breastfeed. They have heard messages and stories from many other sources, and they had their idealized vision of what having a baby would be like. Now they are faced with the reality, and you can help them adjust to any unexpected challenges. One way you can help parents in the hospital is by making sure they are prepared in advance to breastfeed. As discussed earlier in this training, let women know that they won't feel changes in their bodies that signal their milk increasing or coming in until after they leave the hospital. Educate them about the importance of colostrum and that learning to latch and breastfeed takes practice and time. Let them know that most healthy babies will wake often and be fussy on the second day, so they get plenty of feeding practice. Share the benefits of skin-to-skin contact. Unless they need to pump for medical reasons, advise them to avoid pumping and not to use a pump until after speaking with a lactation consultant. Above all, make sure that they know that breastfeeding problems can be solved and that resources are available to help them. You may be familiar with the Arizona Baby Steps to Breastfeeding Success Initiative, which are policies and practices hospitals can use to support breastfeeding. Step 1 is that moms should initiate breastfeeding within the first hour after birth, focusing on skin-to-skin contact. Step 2 is promoting 24-hour rooming in. That is, the baby is in the room with mom at all times while in the hospital. Step 3 is not providing formula or other fluids unless medically necessary. Step 4 is that hospitals should not provide a pacifier or artificial nipples while breastfeeding is being established. The fifth and final step is giving moms a phone number that they can call to receive help with breastfeeding after hospital discharge. When you talk to moms about the hospital experience when they are pregnant, you can mention these 5 steps. Moms-to-be can ask about support for breastfeeding when they are choosing which hospital to use. Ideally, hospital policies and procedures should support breastfeeding. You can also encourage moms to talk to their doctors about their intention to breastfeed and request this support before they give birth. It is best for moms to have this conversation before they go into labor so their wishes are known in advance. When babies are given formula supplementation in the hospital, some mothers believe they can't go back to exclusive breastfeeding. They may believe even after 1 or 2 bottles that their baby is used to the bottle and that they have no other option than to continue using formula, even if the baby no longer needs to be supplemented. For example, one mother in the UC Davis study said, "I give him formula because that's what he's used to and he'd take it. I kind of had to give in because I didn't have another option." Reassure moms that with support, babies can go back to exclusive breastfeeding. Let them know that babies don't get used to bottles when they are so young. After all, many babies need some time to practice latching and feeding, even if they've never had a bottle. Be cautious about overemphasizing messages about nipple confusion or that just 1 bottle of formula can be harmful to mother and baby. These messages may reinforce the idea that they must stop breastfeeding if their baby receives formula in the hospital. While we don't want moms to use bottles unnecessarily, we don't want them to think that it is no longer possible for them to breastfeed exclusively. Some mothers may think if their baby receives formula in the hospital, it meant that the feeding recommendation for their baby changed. For example, one mother in the UC Davis study said, "They gave us huge bottles, but I really wanted to breastfeed." Another mom said, "If the hospital uses it, it must be better because they're up to par with research and everything." Sometimes when formula supplementation is recommended by a doctor or nurse, parents aren't sure how much formula should be used and for how long. They don't know how the doctor plans to follow up with them after they leave the hospital. Parents sometimes assume that when their doctors say that their babies need formula, this means they are recommending that they stop breastfeeding, but the doctor may really only intend for the supplementation to be used temporarily to address a specific medical concern. Encourage parents to get the information they need from their doctor when formula is given. They can ask the following questions. "I would like to continue breastfeeding. Are you asking me to stop? If not, how much formula should I use? When should I give it to my baby? For how long should I give supplemental formula to my baby?" Another issue with supplementation in the hospital is that parents may be afraid or overwhelmed by the idea of returning to exclusive breastfeeding, especially in cases where there was a medical reason for the supplementation. Parents may fear that stopping the formula will cause health problems in their baby. In fact, some parents may fear stopping the formula if another child of theirs had medical problems that required supplementation. They may be so afraid of it happening again that they won't even try to breastfeed with their second child. Parents who have children with medical issues need to work with their healthcare providers to build a safety net in case things go wrong. They need to learn about indicators that things are okay or not okay. They need to know if something is wrong. How will the baby look? How will the baby behave? Will there be obvious signs? Make sure worried parents have phone numbers so they know who they can call and when they are available. Give them actions they can take until they can reach someone who can answer their questions. Making sure parents know that they have this safety net and can take action to solve problems will help them avoid feeling like they're facing that brick wall with no options. Encourage all parents who are worried about their babies to contact their healthcare providers. Watch another video of Mariana and Rachel. In this video, Mariana is at the hospital after giving birth to her daughter. She has some concerns that she shares with Rachel.
Thank you for calling WIC. This is Rachel. How can I help you?
Hi, Rachel. This is Mariana.
Hi, Mariana. How are things going so far?
I'm good. The labor was really hard, but I'm glad Lucia is finally here.
Lucia, that's such a pretty name. How do you feel that breastfeeding is going?
Well, that's why I called. I tried a little, but I don't think I'm going to be able to breastfeed, so I'm going to need some formula.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
They gave me formula in a bottle. If they give it to me, Lucia must need it, right? Since they know what they're doing. Besides, now that she's had some formula, she won't want to go back to breastfeeding.
Watch the second part of the conversation while Mariana is in the hospital to see how Rachel supports her.
Babies can go back to breastfeeding, even if they needed a bottle in the hospital. How would you feel about that?
I thought once Lucia had a bottle that she wouldn't want to go back to breastfeeding. I tried after that first bottle, but she didn't latch on my breast very well. I thought she only wanted the bottle. Plus, I'm worried that this is what she's supposed to be fed since they gave it to her.
Breastfeeding can be tough at first. A lot of moms have told me something similar. The good news is that a lot of moms have also told me that with a little practice and help, they were able to latch the baby on, and they were so glad that they didn't miss out on that experience. You know, in the first few days, everything is so new that babies are still trying to figure out how to get their muscles to work right. Lots of babies have trouble latching in the first few days, whether they had formula or not. It'll get better with practice. I can offer you some tips today on talking with the doctor and with latching. Would that be okay?
Yes, thank you so much.
Great. I have a checklist of questions that you can ask your doctor, like how much formula to use and for how long. You can ask him to write it down so that way you know exactly what Lucia needs.
That would definitely help. There's so many new things to remember, and I'm having trouble keeping track of it all.
There's a lot to do with a new baby, and it can seem overwhelming at first. I can also give you the number to a breastfeeding hotline, so that way when you get home, if you're still having problems, you'll have a number that you can call. There's a lot of support available to you.
Thank you so much. I really wanted to breastfeed, and I was so disappointed when I thought I couldn't. I'm glad I still get a chance.
If parents did not receive information about infant crying and sleeping previously, you can support them by providing this information after the baby is born. Crying and waking are two critical concerns for parents right after they bring their babies home. Furthermore, even if you did share the information before the baby arrived, this is a great time to reinforce those messages when they can use the information immediately. Shortly after the baby is born is the perfect time to teach parents about baby cues. While you can teach generally about engagement, disengagement, hunger, and fullness cues before the baby arrives, it's much more effective to do so when you can use their baby's actual cues to teach them how their baby can communicate. Of course, not all babies are the same, but if the baby is right there, you can adapt your messages to help parents understand cues that the baby is already using. Information on cues is not as immediate or useful prenatally when parents can't apply it. For baby cues, help parents see the difference between engagement cues that show I want to be near you and learn and play, and disengagement cues that show I need something to be different. Also, let parents know that, with practice, they can learn how to tell the difference between hunger cues and other cues. Newborn cues can be very subtle, and therefore may be more challenging for parents to recognize. Engagement cues may be brief because it is tiring for newborns to be alert. Watch the newborn in this video give engagement cues. The baby's eyes are open and he is attempting to focus, but it doesn't last long. Newborns rarely are able to remain alert for more than a few minutes at a time. You can see this baby trying to maintain eye contact with his mother. His face and body are relaxed. These are engagement cues. Newborns can't maintain an alert state very long, and after a few minutes, they will look away or fall asleep. In this video, the newborn is giving disengagement cues. This baby clearly needs something to be different. Fortunately, his dad knows that this newborn isn't hungry. He knows exactly what to do and is able to quickly comfort him. This father knows how to read the cues his baby is giving and how to respond. You see that this baby's whole body is stiff and tense, and his hands are away from his face. He has closed his eyes and he is trying to move his head. These are disengagement cues. He is letting his dad know that he is not comfortable. See how he relaxes when his dad touches him, letting him know that he is there. Knowing more about baby cues is valuable for all caregivers, not just moms. If partners can understand their baby's behavior and explain it to others, it gives them a sense of confidence and control over the stress that comes with being a new parent. That sense of confidence can help caregivers look for solutions when their baby's behaviors confuse them, rather than giving up on following feeding recommendations and resorting to controlling their emotions rather than getting help. They won't feel like they are facing that brick wall, even when they bring the baby home. Now that Lucia is a few weeks old, Mariana and her husband Brian are back at the WIC office. Rachel asks how things are going at home with the new baby. Watch the video to see Mariana and Brian's response.
I love Lucia's outfit today. She is just adorable.
Isn't she the cutest baby ever?
How are you both doing now that Lucia is home with you?
I know you told me she would need to eat a lot, but Lucia is hungry all the time.
She wakes up hungry and crying so much. We're so exhausted.
Watch the second part of Mariana and Brian's meeting in the WIC office. Note how Rachel asks questions to find out what they have observed, and she gives specific information on Lucia's cues.
Well, I'm impressed that you're both here and doing so well. She's beautiful. You mentioned that she's hungry all the time. What does she do to tell you that she's hungry?
Well, when she's crying, I check her diaper first. And if her diaper isn't dirty and she's still crying, she must be hungry, right?
Well, when she's crying, she is telling you that she really needs you. When she's hungry, she may cry, but she'll also use other cues. What are some signs of hunger that you've noticed before she cries?
What do you mean? What kind of signs?
Well, when babies are hungry, they'll try to communicate with you in every way they can. They'll try to give you several signals together to let you know that they need to eat. For example, some babies will bring their hands up to their face or clench their hands and try to root. Actually, look at Lucia right now. Do you see how she's making that sucking motion and flexing her arms and legs? She's telling you that she's hungry.
Oh, I've seen her do that before. Sometimes she tries to put her fist in her mouth and suck on it too. I didn't know what it meant though.
That's great that you're paying attention to what she's doing. If you can watch for those cues and feed her when she's telling you that she's hungry, then you can feed her so she doesn't have to cry. You'll actually reduce how often she cries by responding to her cues. If you'd like, you're welcome to feed her here.
It would be nice to know what she wants before she starts to cry. Does she give cues for other things, besides telling us that she's hungry?
She does have other cues. She can tell you when she's full, when she wants to play or interact with you, and when she needs something to be different. Would it be okay if I share a little bit more about that?
What moms hear from their family and friends affects their expectations and their decisions about feeding. When you work with moms, always respect their relationships, even if the information they are receiving isn't correct. If you disrespect someone important in that mom's life, it won't matter that your facts are correct. You aren't likely to change her behavior. The stories moms hear from their family and friends are well-intentioned, but they may undermine the mom's interactions with her baby. You can educate moms and help them feel confident in their decisions and problem solving, and still be respectful of other people in their lives. Imagine this scenario. Kim is with her baby Alex and his grandma about 20 minutes after a feeding. If the baby starts to get fussy, Grandma might say, "Oh, I think he's hungry again." If you have helped Kim become confident with her knowledge about baby behavior, she will recognize her baby's signals and say, "I know it seems like he's hungry when he's fussy like that, but I don't think he's hungry. I think we're going to have a dirty diaper in just a minute." She'll be ready for this situation and know how to respond appropriately to her baby's cues. She'll also have proof that she's right. You can improve her confidence in her own ability to solve problems. Besides at home and in the hospital, caregivers may face challenges in other places. For example, think about this situation. Inez and her 5-month-old son Miguel take the bus to Wick. On the 20-minute bus ride, the baby watches all the people get off and on and smiles at everyone even though he hasn't had a morning nap. Miguel has just fed 15 minutes before he got on the bus, and he starts to squirm and push away from Inez right as the bus gets to Wick. Just as Miguel and Inez walk in the door at Wick, Miguel starts to cry. Inez thinks this is a mystery. What do you think? Any situation like the bus ride with a lot of variety in sights, sounds, and smells can cause babies to be overstimulated. You can help parents by teaching them to watch for cues. When they see their babies start to give disengagement cues, they can try to remove some of that stimulation or use repetition to soothe their babies if they are fussy. For example, a baby at a 4-year-old cousin's birthday party may be fine when she first meets relatives who all want to hold her. If her dad notices that his daughter is giving disengagement cues before being passed to another relative, he can give her a break by holding her close to his own body or take her to a quiet room away from the party for a few minutes. Once she is calm and ready to engage again, he can bring her back to the party. Helping parents recognize and respond to cues means they will be more prepared in any situation. They can learn to see the signals and adjust for what their babies need. When you help them understand their baby's behavior, you are showing them that they have solutions to deal with problems. In this module, you learned how to support parents in getting the information and skills they might need at different times and for different situations. Before the baby is born, help parents form realistic expectations. This is the best time to share messages about sleeping and crying. At the hospital, help moms be prepared for breastfeeding so they can make informed decisions. If they do receive formula, encourage moms to ask their doctors for clear written directions for formula use. After parents bring their baby home, teach them about cues. Reinforcing messages about crying and sleeping is also helpful. When parents have the correct information, strategies for responding, and resources for support, they will feel more confident that they know what their babies need and how to get help if they need it.